This is what we do.
We solve problems.
Okay.
Create impact.
No, not this again. I can't do it anymore. Enough. Why?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first graduation event for Service Spectacles, which is consists of an in-person exhibition and 3 online events that will happen today, tomorrow, and the day after. And this is the graduation of the students from MA Service Design. I'm the course leader for MA Service Design, Sylvia Grimaldi, and I'm very pleased to welcome you to these events. This is an amazing cohort of students. They decided to start a master's, often moving to a new country, to a new continent during the pandemic. So we taught partly in person, partly online. The students had to adapt to different ways of doing things many times throughout this year as we went through tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 restrictions, full lockdown, social distancing, and all the range in between. At LCC, we have a particular approach to service design. So we define service design as a human-centered discipline, which focuses on designing services in the private or public sector, working in participative, iterative, and qualitative ways with all stakeholders, and also considering the wider systems at play. And in this course, we have a particular approach to service design. We are really interested in teaching through live projects. So the majority of the projects that the students have done this year are live, and they're taught with a lot of involvement of multiple partners, stakeholders, clients, experts, etc. And this is true of the major projects that you will see today as well. The students had to form their own partnerships and make sure that there was that relationship with real stakeholders. We're very committed to ethical practices of design. We work in socially responsive ways, and we apply this to wicked problems, for example, within healthcare, public services, local government, policy, or technological developments. And we use this approach not only looking at kind of the micro aspects of individual user needs, but also the macro aspects of larger systems, which may include humans, but also organizations, society, and also ecology. At LCC, we have a very strong branch of research in service design. And so we are very much at the forefront of different ways of using service design, for example, within policymaking, within science, and collaborating within very big research projects that are based either at LCC or that LCC is part of, or within UAL. We also are very interested in working in designerly ways. So not only do we use kind of non-linear agile ways of working, but we also have a lot of emphasis on prototyping, on making, not only as a way to test things as we go along, but also as a way to communicate back to those audiences that we have engaged throughout our projects. So through exhibitions, videos, presentations, etc. So you'll be able to see how this approach has been a starting point for students to build on for their projects. Today's event is themed around the theme of micro, and here's how the students have made sense of what connects their work. Well-being today is not just about the absence of disease, but a way for people to realize their own aspirations, satisfy their needs, and cope with their environment. The theme micro focuses on envisioning holistic well-being through service design to improve personal and interpersonal relationships. The projects in this theme look through the lenses of self-care, safe spaces, trust, understanding, healing, support, and increased knowledge to help empower individuals. In this theme, we have 10 projects that will be introduced in detail as the session begins. I would now like to hand it over to our host for the day, who is one of the graduating students, Gina Wang. So let the show begin. Gina.
Thank you, Sylvia. Hello, everyone. I'm Gina. We are glad you joined us today. You could find out the house rule in the chat. And if you have any question to the show or the workforce student, please feel free to leave your question in the Q&A window. We will answer them in our Q&A session. First, I'm going to introduce MA Service Design graduates of 2021. In my group, we have 9 participants: Joy, Devika, Giselle, Trisha, Louis, Sahana, Vinny, Hen, and Taco. They will introduce their research journey and design outcome to us. I will pass it to Joy, let her to introduce herself first.
Hello guys, my name is Zhao Yang, and you can call me Joying. So my project is Secure. So my question is, what if the bereaved people could heal themselves through cleaning out the loved one's closet and honor the memory?
Hi everyone, I'm Devika Sharma. My project is called Our Herd, and my project explores the question of what if young adults in India had a safe conversation space with their family members to support mental health and build resilience post-pandemic.
Hello everyone, my name is Giselle D'Souza, and my project is called Circle of Hope. The question it addresses is on what if cancer patients were given a safe space to express themselves to their loved ones and also able to seek reassurance from survivors.
Hello everyone, my name is Trisha Rathod. My project is called the Menopause Manual. While developing this, I wondered what if individuals felt supported by their family and workplace as they navigated through their menopause.
Hi everyone, this is Louis, and my project is Formula Plant. The question I'm focusing is, what if international students are provided with opportunities to break down their cultural circles to build a broader supportive networks in their accommodations?
Hi everyone, my name is Sahana Mohanty and my project is called The New Old, which focuses on the question, what if young adults could challenge their perception of the older demography to allow a more positive association to aging?
Hi everyone, I'm Vinny Garg. My project is B for Boredom, and the question I address is, what if people engaged with boredom in a healthy way that made their life more meaningful and led to creative breakthroughs and self-reflections?
Hi everyone, my name is Ren Adler, and my project is Challenge Accepted, which focus on what if women could overcome the barriers lack of confidence create in their career.
Hi everyone, my name is Tina Liu. You can call me Taco. My project is We Connect, which is exploring the question, what if volunteering become the key for international students connecting to local?
Thank you. Next, we will understand the context behind this brilliant project through different questions. And the first question we have will be, what motivated you to work on this topic? Giselle, could you tell us more?
Sure, thank you Gina for that question. For me personally, cancer was a very sensitive topic, and it sprung between these three ways. The first was because it was a very, very personal experience. My close family and friends were diagnosed with cancer, through breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and prostate cancer. And at that point in time, I felt really helpless. I didn't know what to say, how to really help them out. When I did a little more research within UK, the second aspect, I realized that in the UK, 1 in 2 of us will be diagnosed with cancer in our lifetime. And that really gave me a shock, and I wanted to look into it in detail. Through my research, when I looked into it, I realized the time period from diagnosis to treatment is a 62-day wait time. At that point in time, the cancer patients go through a lot of anxiety and fear, which is a long time that is there. And that point in time, I really wanted to seek help and support, so that I could help them out. And that's the reason I wanted to work on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Giselle. Thank you for sharing. And next we have Louis to share with us her motivations.
Thank you, Gina, for your question. So my service, Formula Plant, is a planting calendar-based service that helps international students in accommodation to nurture new relationships through community-based co-planting activities. During the past year, when I was living in one of the student accommodations of UAL, the Glasyard building, I discovered an interesting phenomenon, which is that international students come to study in London every year and take living in the accommodations as their first option. As newcomers in the city, they usually have very limited social networks. They only interact with people from their countries, or students from their classes or roommates. So as a result, they don't have many opportunities to deeply understand the local culture and build wider connection with the local communities. Also, limited physical independent living spaces in the accommodations make it harder for them to build relationships with people around them. And this motivates me to design a service that aims to help international students to make connections and improve well-being. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis. It's very clear. And Tucker, we want to talk more about it.
I chose this topic because experience local culture is an important part of studying abroad for international students. The UK has a large number of international students. However, many of them don't know how to get to know local people and make connection with local because they are not familiar with the new environment. But they are eager to integrate into the new culture and experience the city more fully. So I think it was exploring. Another motivation is the topic is closely related to my life. I'm grateful that this project has promoted me to participate in many amazing local activities, service, and volunteering activities, which give me a more authentic experience in London and immerse myself in local culture better.
Thank you, Tucker. It's glad to hear you have great experience in London. And after understanding the motivation from students, we want to hear more about what are the challenges you face while working on the project? And we will have Joy to answer these questions.
Thank you, Gina. So the topic of bereavement is private side and even a taboo for people. So to understand the inner workings of people's minds, I need to explore different perspectives so that the service could help people support the process of sorting a loved one's clothes after they have passed away. Thank you, Gina.
Thank you, Joy. It's quite unique topics. And next we have Trisha to share with us her challenges during the process.
Thank you, Gina. So my project focuses on empowering individuals to communicate their menopause to themselves and their peers. And in the beginning, I assumed that being a woman, it would be easier for me to empathize with my user. But since I haven't experienced menopause yet, I was constantly trying to make sure that I'm doing justice to the subject. Moreover, it's not just women who experience menopause, but also transgender and gender neutral individuals. And it was very difficult to find users of all gender forms. Another interesting challenge was addressed during some of my conversations with the users, when they often complained about not receiving enough support from their partners or male coworkers. So this made me realize the importance of men in the menopause journey of an individual. And as I sent out surveys and received gradual responses, I could sense the hesitancy and the lack of awareness around the subject. So it came down to me approaching strangers on the streets of London, having conversations with them about menopause. The taboo around the subject was very prevalent, and it made it quite challenging to approach people, irrespective of whether they were going through menopause or not. While these challenges were a bit tricky to navigate through, they did help me make my service more inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you, Trisha. As a designer, we always know getting in touch with users is quite crucial, but also the hard part in the research journey. So next question we will have, what were the aha moments through your journey? And we will have Hun to answer this question with us.
Thank you, Gina, for your question. So in my project, Challenge Accepted, which aims to empower women who work in organizations to take a proactive approach to build their confidence, I felt my big aha moment was during my ideation phase. Looking at the results of my workshops and all the exciting platforms, existing platforms I examined, I asked myself, if there are so many initiatives and services aimed at helping women work on their confidence, how can this project innovate? There are enough confidence experts, and this project is not going to replace them. So looking closely at what the existing services offer showed that usually these services the initiative of platforms are very theoretical, and the more thorough ones usually cost money, take time to complete, and cover an overwhelming amount of information. There are so many how to become more confident, but there is a lack of opportunities that help a woman to actually practice that. So that was my moment, like realizing that this is the gap my project could fit in, dealing with confidence issues by using actual hands-on practice, like one step at a time. So thank you.
Thank you, Hun. Vinny, could you share with us your aha moment?
Yes, thank you for the question, Gina. So I had two aha moments in my discover stage. So to give you a context, B for Boredom is a prompts-based card game which helps people feel supported when boredom can make their life feel a bit meaningless. So the very fact that I was able to discover boredom as something that I could design for was an aha moment for me. I was really surprised to see so many philosophers and scientists actually working on different aspects of boredom. And I had used, like everyone else, I had used I am so bored so many times that it had become a cliche. And when I discovered that boredom actually was a very important part of our life and it helped in creativity, reflections, and in general relaxing, it was really surprising. The second aha moment was when the young adults actually showed interest in it. So when I sent out surveys, I was pretty sure that half of them are going to be uninterested, but the results were actually the opposite. So a lot of them had actually thought about it in depth. And a few also mentioned using boredom in a healthy way and positive way. Some mentioned that it had negative effects on them. So out of 30 participants, around 52% of participants mentioned that boredom made their life feel a bit meaningless, nothing had a purpose, or leisure was no longer fun. And that really motivated me to at least increase awareness about it. So if someone was going through this, they could identify that they are bored, and actually I could help them at that moment.
Thank you, Vinny. It sounds quite interesting. And Sahana, we want to share with us your aha moment.
Thank you, Gina. My project, The New Old, is about tackling ageism for a positive aging experience. And my journey, like most design processes, was non-linear. I started the process to help create a system that can change how we look at care services for the elderly. But as I dug deeper into my research, one common theme was raised multiple times, that people simply hated the idea of getting old. And a lot of this was propagated by the negative and stereotypical portrayal of this demography in the media, in literature, and pop culture. So my first aha moment was to help create a system that can address these implicit and underlying issues affecting the older group. The other defining moment was during my co-design workshops when I witnessed just how unilateral the perspective of the younger group was for older adults, and that by simply introducing inspiring older figures, I was able to challenge their views, provoke reflection, and enable empathy for the aging group. And this really helped me shape the direction of my proposal.
Thank you, Sahana. Every time I see my calendar, I was worried about to getting old. Then next question we will have, what impact does your project aim to create? And we would like Divika to share with us.
Thank you, Gina, for your question. So to give you all a bit of a background about my project, Our Herd is a well-being service for young adults experiencing poor mental health to have more open conversations with family members. So essentially, the idea is to create a personalized safe space with loved ones through the power of generous listening facilitated by communication cues. So my impact for this project is twofold. In the short term, the service aims to empower young adults to bridge the gap with their family members, feel heard, and sort of create an ecosystem of support around them. Consequently, this would enable them to have more engaging and meaningful conversations, prevent poor mental health, and also be appropriately supported when a problem or concern is identified by their support circle. In the long term, however, in a country like India, where mental health is unfortunately still stigmatized, the service aims to create a shift in mindset that normalizes talking about mental health, facilitating trust within families, and ensuring that everyone is heard with empathy. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. And the next question, I see the audience also curious about what the key value of your project. And Divika, could you tell us more?
Sure. Thank you, Gina. So to begin with, my design practice is deeply anchored in the values of empathy, inclusivity, compassion, and using the power of design to help better the environment that we live in every day. So my project is built upon a foundation of 4 guiding principles. The first one being empathize more. This signifies fostering understanding and compassion by acknowledging different perspectives. The second is candid expression. This aims to empower young adults to be truly heard without any judgment, bias, or interruption through the process of generous and active listening. This, through intent engagement, honest and meaningful communication, is encouraged between young adults and parents in their own definition of a safe space. Lastly, the purpose is to support unconditionally by creating a strong ecosystem of support that mutually empowers, helps, and builds mental health resilience in Indian families. Thank you.
Thank you, Divika. It sounds quite an amazing project. And next we have Trisha to share with us.
Thank you, Gina. So as my project addresses the need for personalized support for individuals experiencing menopause, I identified 3 key pillars of my project, which in turn create value. So firstly, awareness, which aims at ensuring easy access to information about menopause and providing the right resources at the right time to not only the user, but also their family. The second is identification, that addresses the importance of self-reflection, which helps individuals own their menopause experience. And lastly, expression, that aims to create a safe space for conversation where individuals can inspire others through their journey.
Thank you, Trisha. It sounds very important value for your project. And next we have Vinny to share us more.
Thank you for the question, Gina. So my project's values are pretty similar to Trisha's. Just as hers, I also have the 3 pillars, which is awareness, identification, and engagement. So to elaborate, as awareness, my project aims to give boredom the much needed importance. So in a way that helps people feel supported, identify the feelings associated with it, and actually avoid any negative feelings such as anger, stress, or anything else. As identification, my project aims to help people identify that they are bored and then use the prompts that are given on the cards or just adapt it in different ways, with the final goal just being passing the phase of boredom positively. So it's not a cure or a solution for boredom, but it's just a support system that provides encouragement at the moment so that you can move forward with your day. And finally, engagement. So my project aims to make people feel more comfortable with boredom and engage in ways that involve mindfulness or reflections, or in general, just help them calm down and give themselves a positive and constructive break.
Thank you, Vinny. It's quite clear. And Sahana, do you have a similar value as Vinny's project?
Sure. Thank you, Gina. So my project, The New Old, is about tackling ageism for a positive aging experience. And there were quite a few guiding principles that helped me develop my concept, with empathy, reflection, and empowerment being some of the core values. The aim of the activities proposed was to help individuals visualize their biases against older people, both intentionally and unintentionally, and evoke a sense of reflection on why we think the way we do. This inward to outward approach was used to trigger a more profound sense of empathy for the older people, as well as an individual's own process of aging. And another key value of the project is simplicity and usability that can help captivate the targeted younger audience to participate in these activities without an excessive cognitive load.
Thank you, Sahana. Thanks for sharing. And the next question is what I really want to know is what we'll do differently if got a chance. And we have Joy to answer this question.
So the service engages people to talk about the person they love and make keepsakes with the aim to support and heal each other during a painful time. But it is not just the loved ones' belongings that people experiencing bereavement need to face. It can also be social media accounts, photos from old digital devices that have not been deleted, and so on. There may also be better ways of designing services to address the pain in people's hearts. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. It's very clear. And we have a move on question. We would like to know who are the stakeholders, what role do they play in your project, and Hern will talk us more about it.
Thank you, Gina. So since the project deals with women's lack of confidence in the workplace, the main stakeholders in the service are first and foremost women, career women who work in medium-large organizations and focus mainly on age group 40 and under, who according to studies tend to experience a lack of confidence in the workplace more often. Another main stakeholder group is the human resources team, who are responsible for the well-being of the employees. And other stakeholders I worked with during the project are experts such as career coaches, mentors, feminists, and influencers. Now, the service will be provided by a passionate women entrepreneur who acts for closing the gender gap by using their knowledge and experience they gained over the years, encouraging other women to challenge themselves, provide guidance, maintain supportive community on social media, and train women who are interested to become club hosts in their workplace. Now, these women who wish to become hosts, they are the actual primary users here. And the idea is that they will bring the service to the workplace, or alternatively, take it forward from the human resources teams, who is looking for ways to apply, in case they're looking for ways to apply organizational culture that aims to promote equality and diversity in the workplace. Now, during working on this project, there was a relationship between the employees and the HRs, because I see it as a delicate balance of top-bottom hierarchy. So I intended the service would enable women to bring the initiative to the organization, while the HR will supervise about quality content that the employee will receive. So, and then that leads me to the last stakeholder, which is the content expert, because the service is not intended to produce new content, but to use peer learning and hands-on practice for the monthly challenges. So the experts already hold the knowledge, so they will be the one who provide the context for these challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Hen. I have a high interest in your project. So everyone, if you are curious and want to know more about everyone's project, you can find out the preferred link in our chat and give a look. So next question we will have, can you tell us more about your outcomes? And we will let Giselle to share us more.
Thank you so much, Gina, for your question. With regard to my project, it's called the Circle of Hope. It's basically a self-care approach service for cancer patients. So providing them a safe space to express themselves to loved ones, along with seeking reassurance from cancer survivors for better well-being. The strong hold of the power of expression gives the cancer patients a platform to receive love and care through the interactive journal with prompts in it. The service aims to support the newly diagnosed cancer patients that are in stage 1 and 2, addressing the emotional needs as well as the practical needs during the challenging time of coming to terms with a diagnosis, especially from diagnosis and waiting for the treatment to begin. Also, the name plays with the theme of hope, with the circle indicating that the service is the beginning of a broader aspect of you to inspire others with your experience, with your grit to live. The circle of hope continues from the patient to survivors till they're done with their treatment. And the newly diagnosed patients again are give one another strength, support, and reassurance always. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Giselle. So Louis, do you have a similar outcome like Giselle's?
Thank you, Gina, for your question. So as the final deliverables, I designed this service named Formula Plant, which is about a planting calendar-based service that provides students in accommodation with a series of activities to stay connected with people and local communities. So this is how it works. After students arrive in the accommodation, they will receive a starter kit in their rooms. The kit contains an edible planting package, a no edible planting package, and a set of idea bank game cards. Students can scan the QR code on the kit to enter the service digital platform. The digital platform will guide them to do some primary planting tasks, like sowing some indoor plant seeds for eating or for decoration. And after that, if they subscribe to the matching service in the following 5 months, they will receive a clue card each month. The clue card will guide them to another student, and together they will have some interactive activities to nurture relationships. Actually, the idea bank is a tool to help students to generate conversations and ideas. For the first 6 months, students will build an internal network with other students in the accommodation. And in the next 6 months, students will continue the journey by selecting a role from the 5 roles at the beginning and participating in different co-planting activities to nurture external relationships with the community. And in the final months, they will display their plants and story that they've nurtured and experienced on the plant show and make further connection with fresh year students from the next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis. Thank you for your explanation. And next, we have one more question. So what are the most important insights you found? And we would like Taco to expand us about it.
Thank you, Gina, for your question. I found different countries have different volunteer cultures. In China, the volunteer activities emphasizes getting happiness through helping others. However, in the UK, the meaning of volunteering is more diverse. Local volunteer activities can bring many benefits to volunteering, from meeting people, connecting with the community, learning skill, and improve your Korean, which is much needed for international students. And this is all benefits that I didn't think about before I addressed this project. So based on this insight, my project is focusing on making volunteer opportunities accessible to international students and inspire them through volunteer stories. Also, the service supports the volunteering organization to write appropriate and attractive briefs for students and helps to match students with suitable volunteering activities.
Thank you, Taco. Thank you for sharing. And for now, we will start our Q&A sessions, and everyone will be free to leave your comments or the question to us, and we'll start our sessions. So there's one question from Darara, if I pronounce right. So this question is to Divika. And she said, amazing way of approaching healthy communication with the families. And she believes that your project will help build conversation between family members of any nation. So the question will be, is it possible to buy the delivered product of your project?
Hi, Daria. Thank you so much for your message. And thank you so much for your appreciation and support. And I completely agree. There is always an opportunity for us to better our communications at home with our loved ones. And this can always start with family members and expand. Currently, my deliverables are in the form of a toolkit and coasters. So the idea is to actually take the opportunity when families sit down together during tea time to have meaningful conversations. But yes, absolutely. If you would like to shoot me an email, I'll drop it in the chat. I would love to discuss that further, and it's exciting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Divika. And I have a question for our panelists. So which phase of project inspire you most? Would Giselle to talk more about it?
Yes, thank you, Gina. So what inspired me the most, or are you in terms of?
We have like double diamonds and we have different phase, and which phase you think inspired you the most?
I think the phase of the co-design, the prototyping phase of that was something that really inspired me, because I got connected with a lot of patients, not only patients, but survivors and families, where I got them at one space and they could discuss, communicate at the same time. I think for me, that phase in the double diamond really gave me a lot of insights, as well as got the needs, especially because I could connect and talk to them there and there. So I think that was the major point in my project.
Cool, thank you, Giselle. And Sohana, do you have the same feeling with Giselle?
Yeah, actually I have a very similar answer to that. So my project also followed the double diamond method. And I think the intersectional point between define and develop was my favorite, or like the most inspiring phase, because it was very interesting that while I'm developing the proposal, I'm kind of going back to my define phase. While I'm defining, I'm developing it side by side. And also the fact that you kind of read research, and during when you're developing it and when you're going through the co-design sessions, you can see it materialize in like practical forms through quotes, through behavior of the people. So yeah, I think that was the most exciting part, and also where I got my most useful insights too.
Thank you, Sohana. As any panelist wants to share with us more with different phase or the same to do the co-create with the user and stakeholders. Louis, we want to tell us more about it.
Thank you, Gina, for the question. So actually, my answer is quite similar with Giselle and Sohana. And personally, I also feel that during the develop stage of my project, I actually, I was quite inspired by the different participants of my workshop, as I recruit them randomly from accommodations. So like during each of the workshop, different students participate in it. And actually I get a lot of inspirations from their like answers, from their ideas that they've contributed during the co-design workshop. So finally, as I summarize the answers together, I actually got quite a lot of interesting insights and ideas from the answers, which actually helps me to form and deliver my final design concept. So I personally, I would say that for the develop stage, actually it inspired me a lot.
Thank you, Louis. It's very amazing. So as a designer, we are not only to do the research, we also to develop prototyping and testing with our user. We have a lot of stage to do to develop our final service project. So my next question will be, how will you measure your success? And will Taco want to tell us more?
Sorry, Gina, can you ask that again?
Yes, my question is, how will you measure your success?
My success.
How do you define like your project or your outcome is success for yourself or for the users?
Oh, okay. Actually, success is important for volunteer because yeah. So this is I also co-design with my user how to sustain them in the volunteer part. So co-design is a good way to get users' idea how to sustain them.
Thank you, Taco. Well, we have lots of questions for Tricia. So the first question for Tricia would be, what would be the ideal service partner and provider for your proportions?
Thank you so much for the question, and thank you, Gina, for saying it. So the ideal service partner would be, there's a company called Balance that has already created a very good presence in the menopause community. So they already have an application that provides resources and is trying to help women going through menopause. So I think if my service fit within their ecosystem, it would be very easy for others to accept the service as well. And since my service also talks about peer learning, it would be a great opportunity for them to connect with menopause influencers in the community and get them on board.
Thank you, Tricia. We have one more question from Josh, if I pronounce right. What's different in culture you find during your research work across various countries on the topic of menopause?
Thank you so much for the question again. So I interviewed a few women from India and from UK. So I conducted a few focus groups in India. And one of the main things I noticed was women in India felt that menopause was something that they were going through personally, and it was their own problem to deal with or their own experience, and they didn't feel as comfortable to share with others. While in the UK, I realized how a lot of the individuals were very vocal about it. And more than that, they actually felt that there was a more systemic issue that we needed to look at. So that was something that came out quite strongly. So as I began to design, this is something that I kept in mind, that we need to create a system which involves everyone in it, so that women don't exactly feel isolated or alone while going through the experience.
Thank you, Tricia. And we have a question from Sarah. She said, many of you research very sensitive topics. Were there any particular steps that you took into consideration when approach people to conduct primary research? Anyone want to answer this question for Sarah?
Sure, I could take that one up as well. Thank you, Sarah, for the question. So with my topic, it was related to cancer. I had to be very sensitive in terms of the words that I use, as well as while I have the conversation with them. I realize sometimes it becomes uncomfortable to be in a group and to discuss their story and their experience. So for me, what I took the approach is I didn't have the set of questions generally through primary research that we generally do. I made it more conversational, wherein I just ensured only what they feel comfortable to share. And I didn't have it as a question list that I wanted to complete. So that made them feel very comfortable. Only what they felt like sharing, they did. And I ensured that this is very private and confidential if they do not want this to go anywhere. So I think that was very important, especially they suffering through so much at that point in time. So I just ensured that is taken care of. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Giselle.
All right.
And thank you, Sarah. And I think that my topic is related with death and bereavement. So there is an activity called Death Cafe. And if you want to talk about death, and if you are interested in the death topic or something related with death, you can join in the death cafe, and people there, they are very open to this topic. And I have joined about 5 times, and for different talk with different people, and they have different background, but we have all experienced the death before. So this creates a very open atmosphere for people to talk. And that will help me to collect many insights around that topic. So my suggestion is that if you are going to research in a very sensitive topic, try to Google some useful activity, and people there, they usually open-minded and create a very welcoming atmosphere for you to join in and to get involved in, and that will very helpful for you to engage in a very sensitive topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Joey. Is anyone also want to share your experience about primary research in the sensitive topic? Then we have one more question from Sebastian. This is for all. How do you choose the form of your desired outcomes, like the toolkits or any app? And do you feel that the service design blends with other disciplines such as experience and information design when participate at the micro level? And would Divika want to answer this question?
Sure, thank you for the question. So for myself, my deliverable is actually analog mostly, and it just has a supportive website. So the idea for me was for it to be as simple as possible and as seamlessly integrating into your daily life. So an opportunity that I found when I spoke and had co-discovery sessions with family members was that most families do have a tea time session together at least once a day or at least once a week in India. And these were times that people got together and spoke about things that could actually impact a young adult in a way that they did not want to be if they were attacked with questions that were not comfortable. So perhaps this could be an opportunity to create a moment that would be a safe space for them that they would look forward to. So yeah, so my idea was to keep it as simple with these coasters. So when you're using them and having tea, you just sort of have conversations, and it's a trigger every time you do it for myself. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Does anyone want to answer this question? Or
I would like to add to that. So to answer the second part of it, so yeah, we all feel that service design can blend with all different types of design, because it feels like it is like a umbrella which covers all different disciplines and tries to merge all of them together and try to communicate and collaborate. So experience and interaction and all really fit with service design. That's why you can see that all our outputs are also really varied, and that is what makes service design really interesting. And yeah.
Thank you, Vinny. And there's one question for me. I'm curious, what's your future plans? And with like Sohana, we want to text my questions.
Hi, thank you, Gina. Sure. So my service outcome is focusing a lot on enabling reflection and empathy. So it's like one touch point of the service. And I would like to take it further by actually trying to bring in the voice of people. Like after reflection, you kind of have to raise your voice, create discussions, influence policies at like workplaces or anywhere else that can actually help the older demography. So I think like my scope of my deliverables have kind of covered the first half of the like battle rather, and I would like to kind of take forward it in a way with other like organizations that are actually involved in this to kind of really make like a more holistic impact.
Thank you, Sohana. Does anyone also want to share with us your future plans? Vinny?
Yeah, I can answer that. So for me, currently, it was only focused for young adults, because that was the group that I've thought with the fast-paced era that we are living in, would be really exposed to boredom. But while researching, I found out that ADHD, people who suffer from ADHD have high levels of boredom, and that is because they need continuous stimulus and that can be really painful and sometimes really unbearable for them. So the aim would also be to take it forward and actually use it to help them in the face of boredom. Yeah.
Thank you, Vinny. And is anyone also want to share with us your future develop for your project? With Tarkos, do you have any plan in your mind?
Yeah, actually, my project in this phase just focus on the international student, but I'd also like to exploring the all students in UK can join this volunteer community together. So my future plan is keep discovering and test with local students.
Thank you, Taco. We have one question for Trisha from St. Peter's. How you have thought of making your solution user-friendly, especially for the senior members?
Thank you so much for the question. So I initially was wanting to make my entire service more analog. So I created a set of cards and I started testing them out. And I had, in fact, called a lot of women, and I, in fact, did a few video calls and everything as well. But they felt that they wanted something more online, something more digital. They said that they wanted something in their phone that they can just tap, do 3 clicks, and they get all the information about menopause in a very easy way. So that's when I made the shift to something more digital. So even though it may seem as something that's a bit intimidating, the truth is that it's all derived from what users have been saying and what they've been wanting. So that is one thing. And then another thing was when I was making the cards and testing it out, I think a common complaint that I received was all the font sizes and the colors were very difficult to read. So I think definitely if I'm taking this ahead, that's something that I have to consult with, get a graphic designer on board and get everything right. So yeah.
Thank you, Trisha. Is anyone have a similar challenges when you face how to deal with this with your users or stakeholders during your research journey? Want to share with us? Louis, we want to share us more about any challenges you faced during your research journey.
Basically, I think the most challenge I'm facing when I was doing research is about how to engage different stakeholders and users in the project. So basically, when you are thinking about this question, the most important thing is how could you convince them or provide them with a certain kind of motivation to engage them in the different kind of activity. So actually, it's a quite hard process for me because when I primarily started this project, a lot of students, they are actually leaving the accommodation as during the summer holiday. So when I conducted the first co-discovery workshop with some other students, and I would like to engage them further with the next stage of my design, they actually they are not available at that time. So I have to recruit some of the other students from the next year when they arrive in the accommodation in September. So the timing is quite important in terms of engaging different students in the project. So I think the most important thing is that when you are trying to engage different stakeholders and users in your project, you have to provide them with a very engaging motivation and to let them feel that they could actually form a part of your final solution so that they can be more motivated to engage in the whole process. Yeah, thank you, Gina.
Thank you, Louis. And I think this question I will also want to ask Hannah because your target users also like senior members. So have you thought about making your solution user-friendly, especially for them?
So like when I started the project, my main stakeholders were like the elderly group, and it was really difficult to kind of get in touch with them. And it's not like you can send them like a Zoom link and hop on a call or like complete research that way. So I think initially I definitely struggled a lot. So I tried to go for those social lunches that are arranged by organizations, or like go to a park and just like have an informal conversation. And I think that's when I realized that you have to be very agile with your approach, because I realized that, okay, this method is not working. I'm not getting as much access to them. Of course, because the pandemic also, they were a little suspicious of you coming and sitting close to them or whatever. So I think that's when I kind of changed the approach to kind of look at it from the younger adult perspective, because I realized that was fitting my scope a bit like better. And that's why like eventually when I proposed a solution, I think I kept in mind the usability and the simplicity that will kind of that will help the for the younger adult to actually come enjoy the concept.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you, Sahana. And we have one comment from the audience for Giselle. Amazing work. Creating a safe space amongst cancer patients is difficult, and your service aims to achieve exactly that. How does your service promote cancer patients to share as it's an incredible difficult text to share?
Thank you for the question. So with regard to the project on how it shares prompts, really, it's through definitely because it's a hybrid way. The first thing is a cancer kit that happens, wherein you get an interactive journal as well as letters from cancer survivors that are there. The interactive journal basically has prompts about, the first is about tips, because the first thing when they open, so it's divided into 4 parts. Tips for cancer patients when you go across. While we give them across the tips, it's not only, I realized that it was not only important to give them tips across, but also how can they ask for help? Because that point in time, they don't want to feel sympathetic, but also need that kind of help. So I changed the word. Instead of help, it's just about doing things together with their friends and families that can offer help. So whenever they needed anything, I ensured that there were questions that they could ask if they wanted somebody to pick the kids up from school at times, because due to cancer and due to the medication, you could just message somebody that if is it possible. So there are different trigger points that are there, and you can give and assign the different names that are there along with it, which will make it easier for your loved ones and families as well. So along with that, the third and the fourth bit is also something to look forward to. It's not only tips and prompts, but also as cancer patients, there's something that you need to look forward to. And that's the section at the end that gives them a lot of hope. So there are a lot of boxes and that they can fill in as well. So that's the offline part, and definitely we have the online as well after they are comfortable to interact with more survivors. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Giselle. And we have one question for Trisha from Josh. What has prompted you to take these taboo topics as your project? What solution model you had appeared to arrive at the solution?
Thank you so much for the question. This is probably going to be a 2-part answer. So primarily, taking up menopause was a tribute to my mom. So she went through her own menopause and she was working at the time, and it was very difficult for her to go through the process as she couldn't tell her employer and she didn't receive the right support. So this is almost like a tribute and an ode to my mom. And regarding I think the solution model, I would say I followed quite similar to everyone, a double diamond approach. But like everyone knows, a design process is never very linear. It keeps, taking its own turns, and you're reiterating and you're doing so much. So that kept happening. So I did follow a very common double diamond approach, but I spent times, especially in the discover phase, where I kept going back on the research that I had, jumping on to develop at one point, then coming back to define. So that kept going on.
Thank you, Trisha. And we have one more question from Joyce, but this one from Vinny. do you think of having yoga and meditation as one of the solutions to overcome the same?
Thank you for the question. That is actually how I started and came across boredom. So I started with silence and I went into meditation. And while I was researching, I actually thought that I should try meditation first before telling anyone else to do it. And when I did it, I actually tried to do it for at least a month, but after that I lost motivation, and then I got busy and so many other things happened. And so I thought that the best way to then propose meditation would be to take it straight. So the solution, the activities that are in the cards are based on mindfulness or reflection, and they have the traits of meditation, but in a fun way, in a twisted way, so that it helps you with boredom. But it is in a healthy way.
Thank you, Vinny. We have two questions for Giselle. So this is a question from Sagita. Nutrition plays a very important role for cancer patients. So you have considered this a set for them in your projects?
Yes, thank you so much for the question. Yes, I did consider that during my research. That came up a lot. While talking over here in the UK context, rather, that is put more to the future right now, because how that could be in detail planned out for each patient, as it is a very personal experience and everybody's experience is very, very different. I did have a connection and talked to the doctors and the nutritionists out here as well. So those that will be more as a next step, and in the future that could be incorporated within Circle of Hope as well. So because as Cancer Central will be taking this up mostly, they were very inclined. So definitely nutrition was one of the aspects that came across in my research completely, and will be incorporated in the future side of it. I hope I
Thank you, Giselle. And also from Josh, want to ask you, what was the motivation story you have applied with the driven solution for cancer patients?
So the motivation, so deriving the solution, the motivation was ideally something that is within, what they are currently doing. So I understood that most of them don't want, as soon as they're diagnosed with it, they don't want to be talking to a lot of people, and it's not networking with a lot of people. And at that point in time, I realized it's something that you need to give them in their comfort zone. So most cancer patients ideally feel just to be in themselves, lock themselves up in a room, because they need to sink in that information. And that's the reason I give them that space of the book wherein they can express themselves. It is only going to be with them until and unless they are more comfortable. And because this is coming from a personal experience wherein I've seen my loved ones suffer through it, I have also tested and I've spoken to them in case if you had to do something like this, would this be a comfort level? Because I'm giving you to do it and not something that I'm enforcing you to do it.
Thank you, Giselle. Please feel free to give a small question. We would love to answer it. And I have one question for everyone. So I would like to hear when you do the testing with your user or your co-create with your stakeholders, what's the interesting story you want to share with us? Divika, do you have any story that you want to share?
Sure, absolutely. I think my story is a bit about failure before you succeed. So I think something that really happens in any design project is that you come up with your first MVP or your most viable prototype or product, and you start testing it with potential users, and you realize that somehow you've given them a solution that you think works, but it doesn't really work for them. So my initial service was actually was a bit of a game which family members could play together. And a lot of my feedback was that in families that don't have any trust, how can you immediately push them to a situation where they need to engage in a game and be absolutely vulnerable and transparent with each other? And that was a very interesting insight, because you have to keep the context and the needs of your users at the forefront at every step of your design process. So that was definitely very insightful, but also very disappointing. So you have to, you have to sort of manage your emotions, not get too disappointed, and realize that you have to just listen to them and go back to the drawing board and keep prototyping and keep iterating till you make it.
Thank you, Devika. Does anyone want to share more about it? Okay, we have one more question for Hen. What's your motivation for choosing the subject is from second thought?
Thank you. It's actually a great question. Yeah, I think this project tells the story of my experience here in this master, and in general, like challenges that I faced during different phases in my life, of experiencing major issues with confidence that I felt that in some ways held me from achieving what I want, what I'm aiming for. And yeah, so it started from something very personal, learning that is actually a huge problem. 80% of women, according to research, said that they're experiencing lack of confidence in the workplace. So yeah, it seems like a wicked problem that should be looked at. Thank you.
Thank you, Hen. So this is my last question, and I would like to ask over you. So how does your project fit in the ecosystem? And our today's system will be Michael. How do you think your project fit in this ecosystem? So Hannah, we want to share with us about it.
Sure, thank you, Gina. Sorry. So I think the general principle of my project is very like inwards. It kind of starts with you thinking about yourself when you're old, and then you thinking about the older people around you, and then you kind of think about the way you would treat yourself and the way you would treat them. So it kind of starts in a very individualistic level, and my hope is that as it scales and the individual becomes like a society, it eventually impacts on a macro level. So I think it falls at the micro level, but eventually the aim is to go towards more macro impact of it.
Thank you, Sahana. Does anyone also want to share with us your thoughts when you put in this pod ecosystem? How do you think you fit this micro team? Joy, we want to share with us.
Thank you, Gina. I think it is because the value is to make people heal themselves and support each other when they experience the bereavement. And there is, according to the research, that if someone died, and there will be 5 bereaved people. And I think that they could use the service of Secure, I mean, to clean out the loved one's closet, the wardrobe, and make something together and heal each other and talk about the funny story of the loved one. And yeah, I think this kind of process about healing and supporting and talking, creating a friendly and loving atmosphere. And I think this kind of value just fit in the microsystem. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joyine. And Hen, we want to share with us about how do you see your project fit in the ecosystem?
Yes, thank you, Gina. I think as my project is aiming for individual women as building confidence by practicing confidence challenges, you can look at it as a very micro project, as the lens that we are exploring today in our project. But it also can look through a very broad lens, which is the macro one. So because having lack of confidence is much more like the problem is much bigger than experience it as an individual issue. Like I said before, like 80% of women experiencing that. So it means it's such a broader problem than it is, that I think it's interesting to see how you can switch lenses and looking at the ecosystem. It's not only the individual, but the whole society, which in that way turns it to be a macro issue. So I think you can look at it in different ways. So hope it answered the question.
Thank you. It's a great answer, actually. Well, if you want to know more about the different ecosystems and how our project fit into land, please join us tomorrow and Friday morning. We have another 2 online talks and service projects to share with you. And this is our last question from the audience. So this question is for Sahana. People don't think they are old. How did you make your respondents to provide input to you in your research where they don't feel they are old?
Thank you so much for your question. So I definitely faced that issue, and like getting like 21, 25-year-olds and asking them to kind of think about the future was really difficult, because I think a lot of them just froze. And for the first 30 seconds, they gave me no answer. So I think the entire point, as I was iterating again, the entire point was kind of dip into like the shallow end first, kind of ask them to think about themselves like few years from now, ask them to kind of give their input on what they think old really is, old in quotes, like is it 40s, 50s, 60s, what is it? And then just kind of help them increase their understanding of the so-called older people who are out there in the world and doing the same things that they are doing at the age of 21, 22. So I think it was like a process, and eventually it went to a point where they kind of understood that they themselves are no different than other older people. So it's a process, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sahana. Thank you for all to join us today. And also don't forget to follow our Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn account to know more details about our showcase for today, tomorrow, and Friday morning. And we hope we could see you as well in the following days. Thank you, everyone. If you have any question, please still feel free to send us through the social media accounts. We'll get in touch with you to give you more detail about it. Thank you for everyone to join us today. Thank you.